You're listening to the 95 Podcast from the team at 95 Network, where we host conversations specifically designed to support leaders in small and mid-sized churches.
Well, welcome back to the 95 Podcast. My name's Austin Savage. I'm here with my good friend Dale Sellers, and we are your hosts. Dale, what are you thinking about right in this moment?
How mad I am that it's 40 degrees and raining, because yesterday it was 70 and I played one of the best rounds of golf I've played in a long time.
Did you really? What'd you shoot?
Dude, I shot an 85, but that was with two back-to-back triple bogeys. If I had not done that,
you would have been,
been special. But I got to tell you, so they when you go by yourself, they just pair you up with folks, and they paired me up with a gentleman. His first name was Rudy, and Rudy's about 75, and Rudy just had bladder surgery. And it was his first round back. And Rudy was as slow as, you're too old. Our guests will know who this is. You don't know who this is. But Tim Conway used to do this thing years ago with the old man. And he walked like in just little bitty steps. That was Rudy yesterday. Rudy about drove me bananas. I mean, he got this, and I'll stop at this one. So at one time, I would go stand and watch him hit the ball because he needed me to hit him. So he swings and misses the ball and looks up and he says, He looked at me. He said, "Did you see where that went?" I said, "Look at your feet."
No,
he missed it completely. Didn't even know.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
It was. So that was my day yesterday. But I had so much fun just getting outside and enjoying the beautiful weather. So now I'm thinking about how sad I am that it's cold again.
I know. That's so funny that you think that that's cold, because like here it's 40 degrees and I'm like just walking outside in t-shirts because that's like warm compared to the 0 degrees it's been. So
I met a friend of yours then when I was in Michigan last weekend. This dude, it was 8 degrees.
Yeah.
And this dude came into the restaurant that I was in wearing a t-shirt and shorts.
Oh yeah.
No coat. And I'm like, what is going on? And then another dude walked in with flip-flops on.
I was going to say that's in high school. That was totally me. Yeah.
So, well, the people we're talking to today, they don't have that kind of cold, I don't think. So,
No. So Dale, tell us, we have Carl and Kalani Culley on the podcast today, and tell us about them, and then we'll welcome them onto the show.
They're some of the funnest people in the world. They're a couple of great hoots who have a tremendous passion for the small church and the small church pastor, and they are not boring at all. And I just got to know them a little bit, so it's just fun to meet new friends, and especially people who enjoy having life or enjoy living life like they do.
I love it. Well, Carl and Kalani, welcome to the 95 Podcast. It is good to have you.
Good to be here.
Very good to be here. Very excited to be here.
You both are sharing a microphone, so which one of you is the most spiritual? I just wanted to kind of.
She is by far and away the most spiritual.
Okay.
Good answer.
Good answer. Pastor, right, Carl?
Yeah, and yes, but
in name only.
That's awesome.
I started following her on Facebook, and she's like posting pictures of birthday parties and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, that's my kind of person right there.
That is awesome. Kalani, what does your name mean? Do you know?
I do. It took me a long time, actually. My parents had friends who were missionaries in Hawaii, and they named their
I think I need to be a missionary there too. Yeah.
Everybody. They named their daughter Kalani, and my mom loved the name. And so about 40 years later, Carl and I actually got over there, and I found out that the name means heavenly.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, glory. I knew that. I knew that already. I already started knew that. Gina and I got to go there for our 25th. We've been married 38 years, but for our 25th anniversary, we got to go spend a week there, and it was like it's the only place that we've ever gone that my wife would have just stayed there. She would have been like, call the kids, tell them, y'all go sell the house. We're just gonna stay here. They can come check us out if they want to. So we want to get back there again too, because it's just a gorgeous place.
Yeah, you can do it for 40. Your 40th. That'd be fun.
No, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what God will have going on by then?
I know. True. It's like life's just always changing, you know?
It is.
Well, why don't you guys, we always love to start with our guest story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your life, what kind of, even how you came to faith, and then what's led the journey that God's led you on to where you're at today.
You want to go on that?
I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, and in 1958. So that's back when dinosaurs were still.
I remember seeing them.
Yeah, and my family was Christian, and in that city, that was unless you were of a certain brand of what's called Christian today, that was an anomaly, and so we eventually moved. I don't honestly remember coming to Christ. I was born and raised in a very, very devoted Christian home. I remember just believing, from a very early age. And we moved to the Northwest in 1968. So I was 10, and became, as I grew, became more and more passionate about my faith, and felt a call on my life. Kalani and I started dating when I was 16.
Wow.
She was 17. I was kind of into older women.
Oh, this is awesome.
We actually, interestingly enough, he went to the Vancouver Foursquare Church and I went to the Portland Foursquare Church. They were just across each other. And we attended the same camp, Foursquare camp. And our stories actually line up. When we were at camp in our early teens, they would do an evening session for camp, and then oftentimes they would have a call for people to come forward and get into a prayer line and pray with someone. And so we were probably in those prayer lines at the same time and receiving a call to ministry.
But didn't know each other.
Didn't meet until, around the time that we were 16 and 17.
Was it love at first sight?
Not for me.
Not for her.
No, listen, I have to tell you that Carl was hot. And
she said Carl was.
We are all getting older. It takes a little more imagination
Oh my God.
on both of our parts to see what was. But hey, he's still a very handsome man. But yeah, at first, because he was kind of shy as far as girls were concerned, I thought he was a little standoffish, and so I didn't like him a whole lot right away.
I'm so sorry.
I liked the package, though.
So you get married, and you begin to do ministry together, or is there more to the story than that?
I went to Bible college in 77, and she stayed behind up here in Portland. And after my sophomore year, we got married, and she came down and finished the last 2 years with me. And so we graduated from school in 1981, and she was very pregnant with our first son. And we, a few months later, planted our first church.
Wow.
And I was 23.
Wow.
Old.
Our first church. Yeah. I don't know whose really good idea that was, but
what was?
Sorry, that church is still there, by the way, and
Really?
doing wonderfully. And we have longtime friends from there, some of whom will be at the conference this year. So it's really cool to look back there, but we don't know how that happened.
Yeah. So looking back on that season, what would you say was the hardest part of being a pastor at 23?
Probably it was a toss-up between insecurity, and extreme poverty.
Yes.
Amen. Amen. Hey, Carl, the first 2 years that Gina and I were married, the first two times we filed our taxes, the first year we made $2,500 that year.
Wow.
And the next year we bumped it way up to $3,500. So our first two,
that's incredible growth.
Yes, it was amazing.
Percentage-wise.
But that year we had a car. I bought a truck that needed a vehicle. We paid $6,000 for a Toyota pickup, and it didn't have air or a radio. And I had a $150 a month payment. That year we made $3,000. So
wow.
Now we were on the road.
Yep.
We were on the road, and we are a lot of our travel, food and things like that were taken care of. But we didn't know what we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So so I understand completely. Okay, so you're there. You get you're getting your feet wet, I guess, or getting your feet on the ground. So walk us through kind of what ministry's been like over those years. And how long have you been married?
42 years.
42 years. So what's ministry been like over 42 years?
Well, the first 5 years, of course, were hard and a learning experience. We were in Philomath for 5 years, but it was wonderful. And like I said, we made just lifelong friends there. We saw people come to the Lord there. We had the privilege of going back for that church's 25th anniversary and hearing stories that we had completely forgotten about of impact some way or another we had on those people's lives. And so that was wonderful. We left there and we went to another little town just honestly a few miles away. And that was kind of the crucible for us. We took over for the pastor who had planted that church. And that was a very hard transition.
Sure it was.
That's the only church we've pastored in our tenure that we didn't actually plant.
Yeah.
We've kind of been church planters.
Yeah. So that was a very, very difficult time.
Very fruitful,
but very, very, very difficult. And very much like what most pastors experience somewhere along the way, at least once.
Dive in a little deeper on
that. Just the fact that we were very different from the
existing leadership.
We were very different from the pastors that had been there. Had a completely different vision, young enough that we didn't realize that we needed to take things more slowly. As we took over that church, we came in like gangbusters and changed a lot of things, and it did result in
rapid growth and a lot of good things were happening, but there was a lot of turmoil under the surface with leadership that when I said in the beginning that I struggled with some insecurity in those first 5 years, well, in following that, everything went so very, very well in that first church plant that we did, that I kind of hit that second assignment thinking that I knew everything.
Ooh, and how old were you?
I was 28, 20.
Oh, good. 28 years old. You know everything.
Yeah, and had everything lined out in my own mind. And had a confidence problem in that I was very overconfident.
Ooh, so you swung the pendulum.
Yeah, it's exactly true. And I was approaching 30, and I thought at 30 you were at the very pinnacle of your when God could use you. And so we really took the bull by the horns there, and we did some really great stuff. We did some fantastic things, and
some things that have lasted, some things that have endured.
Yes, but there were a very small handful of leaders in that church that were not very impressed with how arrogant I was, and so it kind of came to a head that we felt like it was best for us to leave in that situation. And boy, they really
helped us do that.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. Yeah, we felt like it was best to leave, and so did they. So how long?
It was really fantastic too, because God blessed that church with a pastor and his wife that we knew very, very, very well, and they just stepped in, and God's good to his church. God is a very good to his church, and he's good to us as leaders as well, because he knew right where to put us to allow us to very powerfully splatter up against a wall.
Mm-hmm.
That was very good for us.
So the total time you were at the second church was how long?
3 years.
Okay, so Kalani, I want to dive into something here with you for just a second, because your story is thousands of people's stories as far as pastoring goes. A lot of them don't get to have that first, that great start, if you would. What was it like for you as a pastor's wife going through
that? It was brutal because there was so much vitriol aimed at Carl, and he would describe himself as arrogant. I think he felt that on the inside because he had a lot of confidence that he knew what needed to be done in that church, and he wasn't wrong. We just like I said, did it too quickly, but I don't think that really came through. Carl is a person who has always been quick to say he was sorry for his mistakes. He's extremely kind, and he was that there as well. And so it was really, really hard to see that kind of vehement it's really honestly hatred for him and for us. And we came out of that honestly not knowing whether we would continue in vocational ministry.
Wow.
Particularly her. She was kind of done.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that I necessarily wanted to be done, but I thought so poorly of ourselves, at that point, that I was sure we had to be done. And so I remember having a conversation with Carl where we said, if we don't end up with another assignment, if full-time ministry is not in our future, then we will continue to serve the Lord faithfully no matter where he plants us. And I think that was a good place to come to. But yeah, it was really honestly indescribable what the emotion and the insecurity that produced in me. That was right at the time when Jim and Tammy Faye were in the news, in the headlines, and we actually had a couple of people compare us to them.
Wow.
I remember sitting in a beauty salon with my mom following that, and I opened up a People magazine, and they had a great big full spread picture of Jim and Tammy Faye on their wedding day. And I looked at that and I honestly thought, well, maybe that's us. Maybe we are like them. Maybe these people are right.
I never got any of the good stuff though.
The good stuff?
Our bank account.
Oh, no.
Yeah. You didn't get. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you explained it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Where are we going with this?
Sure where I go with that. I'm not sure I want to go where he's going with that. But here's what I want to ask you though, while we're still in that vein there. So how did you get whole? How'd you get healed?
We took about how long were we off? About a year and a half?
Okay, so here's the thing. We were surrounded by people who there were leaders over us. Some of them did as honestly a destructive and bad a job as they possibly could have done in our lives. Just, are you trying to take us out? But far more of the leaders around us were incredibly perceptive, perceptive enough that they really, really saw that we were innocent in the situation, desperate to serve God, desiring a future, but also insightful enough to kind of look at particularly me and kind of grin and shake their head and go, boy, you really needed that. Even though you maybe didn't deserve some of the things that were said and done, in the long run, son, this was good for you. As a matter of fact, years later, not a long time, but about 2 years later, when we came to Vancouver, Washington, to plant the church that we're in right now, this was back in '94 that we came. We came to a large church in Gresham, Oregon, who was the pastor had asked me to come there, and because he knew we wanted to start a church in Vancouver, Washington, and he wanted to launch a church there. And I remember coming to him at his invitation, and I said, Ted, I don't think you know who I am. I really experienced some failure, not moral failure, but I seem to have let some people down. Yeah. And he said, Carl, I wouldn't be interested in even talking to you if you didn't have blood all over you. There is something about, and I see it now, but I didn't see it in my 20s. Mm-hmm. There's something about people who are going to follow Christ are going to have to know him in his suffering, not just in the power and the joy and the love and all that. You've got to know him in his suffering too. It tempers the steel. Mm-hmm. It really does.
And I still want to dive into this, though, Kalani. So okay. God's tempering the steel in Carl. Mm-hmm. God's perfecting him. God's doing all this stuff in him. Yeah. What does the pastor's wife do with this? How did you get resolved through it? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
Honestly, I think probably a lot through the people who were close around us, continuing to affirm our calling and to remind me of who I was when I, was suffering from so much shame, honestly. Some of the things that we were accused of, now we kind of laugh at them. They're honestly kind of funny, but at the time they were incredibly painful. Yeah. And I internalized a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And so I think with people affirming our calling, and then honestly, time, I had to walk through that and allow the time for healing to take place. And there wasn't a shortcut to that. And then with also with the affirmation of people who we began to work with and take on other assignments with, that began to restore my confidence in that call that I had received when I was actually a very young, girl. And so it was rebuilding that, that confidence that had been kind of beaten down, in that time.
Just, this might be of put a smile on some faces out there who can share some similar experiences, just to give some context and to when we talk about the shame that we felt and the painful things. Well, one of the things that we were accused of was embezzling money from the church.
Wow.
And the thing that the experience that was cited for that was the church could not afford to pay our paycheck. I don't know if anyone has ever experienced that.
Not common at all. No.
We used to go in my office and pour the offering on my desk and count it to see if I was getting paid that week when I was pastor.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, they you know, and the truth is that church had not struggled that much financially, but it was a bit of a lull time. It was the summer, and they were a little behind on payroll, and there was some money in a building fund or something like that, and we had set aside a week to go on vacation, and it was an extravagant vacation. We were going tent camping,
Right?
And
wow,
and,
come on,
we
can't do stuff like that.
Yeah, we our administrative guy, he said, look, there's going to be enough. We're $300 short. There's going to be enough in the next offering to cover this. I'm just going to cut you a check out of the the building fund, and you can go on your vacation, and we'll pay it right back. So, you know, as soon as the next offering is taken. And that is what was cited as embezzling funds from the church.
Yeah.
So it's like, here's the thing. Some of you guys are out there, you're laboring and you're doing the best that you can. And sometimes you make decisions that you look back and you go, well, I just wish I wouldn't have done that. I mean, it would have been fine if we just would have, because there wouldn't have been an opportunity for a railing accusation. But here's the thing. If people are going to criticize you, they're going to criticize you no matter what. They're going to find something. They're going to find something. And it's the most powerful thing for me in all of this was just to be able to look back and see that God put me in that place, not only to be a blessing to that church, but to allow the crushing to take place. It was good. It was good. All of it was good.
Well, and my brother told me this is one of the ways that somebody kind of communicated to me that I wasn't as bad as I thought I was. Because I thought, apparently we did something very shameful since I felt that shame. But he said, Kalani, he said, nobody goes to the trouble of embezzling $300.
Right?
How would you do that?
Yeah. So crazy.
That makes no sense.
He said they may just reach in and take it, but they're not good at
embezzling it.
By the way, the point of embezzlement is not to pay the money back. So,
Carl, you mentioned the word failure. And I wanted to kind of dig into that for a second, because you guys know very well, you've been pastors for a long time. You put on a conference for small church pastors, and you know that many small church pastors feel like failures often, for many reasons, related to the size of their church, related to what they accomplished compared to their dreams, related to everything that Dale went through in his book Stalled that he's holding up right now. And it's just very, very common. And in the context of where we're at today, also, a year after, all the shutdowns started taking place with COVID, we've talked a few times on the podcast about how a lot of pastors have really blamed what's happened through COVID on themselves, right? They've seen their church that might have been a church of 200 before is now a church of 60, and they look at that and they feel like it's their fault. So what words of wisdom do you have for leaders who are struggling with failure?
I would tell you that the day is going to come when you're going to look back on things very differently than you see them right now. That day is coming.
Yeah.
It's as sure as anything that you've experienced. I will tell you that Jesus is Lord of his church, and he absolutely adores your failure church of 60.
Mm-hmm.
At least as much as that church that you've envisioned in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that church that you're pastoring right now is actually his true bride, the one that you've had in your mind that you're so heartbroken you haven't been able to attain, and you're blaming yourself for not getting there. Christ adores your church. He absolutely adores your church. But failure is a part of humanity. I don't just mean perceived failure. I mean genuine, bona fide, real failure. We told you about those first two churches that we went to. The first one we planted, the second one we went to. Then we went from there to Boise, Idaho.
Oh.
And we were there for a year and a half, and we were heavily funded by our denomination. As a matter of fact, we set a record for the amount of money that our denomination had invested on a church plant. And at the end of a year and a half, we had about 8 people going in that church. Listen, I had done demographic research prior to going there to determine the exact spot in the town that we were supposed to go to, and who the people demographics were that we were targeting. And we did, by the book, everything right. And it was comical how badly that went. I mean, and we had a lovely time there. We laughed. I did some fishing.
Well, you had a bunch of money in the bank, so it was easy.
My boys and I did some fishing, and the same pass at the end of that, it did still wreak havoc on my self-confidence and stuff, because I mean, we did everything right, and everybody thought we were lovely while we were there, and my boys and I did get to do some fishing. But that was part of when I said to this mentor, I don't think you know who I am. I not only was a failure at this church, but I went to plant this other one and had every opportunity laid at my feet, and it absolutely didn't go. And he said another thing that I thought was very wise. He says, "Oh, that was a cul-de-sac." I said, "A cul-de-sac?" And he goes, "Yeah, you go in, you turn around, you come back out."
Wow.
He said, "God intends a cul-de-sac for your rest and your healing and your restoration."
Wow.
I was like,
that's good.
I was like, well, why didn't someone tell me? I would have rested more, I would have relaxed more, and I would have
caught a few more fish.
But yeah, it's like God. Can I just say to some pastors out there that are really in a dark place, and they're in a place of self-assessment, and they're grieving over where they're at. God knows you. He knows what you need. You probably need this dark time, but he's creating something, a perseverance and a beauty and a purity in you that he is going to use in powerful ways. Do not take your hand off the plow. Don't you do it.
And I want to dive into something here too. I want to distinguish the difference between failing ministry and not knowing what you're doing, and God developing your character. I want to distinguish between that. And if you have a pastor, if you're listening, if you've gotten into sin, if you've gotten into something that no one knows about, if you got something going on behind the scenes, you have got to come clean.
Yeah.
And you need to find something. If you need anybody to reach out to, you can reach out to us, or you reach out to Carl and Kalani. But you can't. What we're discussing today is different. God is shaping your character and preparing you for ministry. And in my book, Stalled, all that. I didn't have a moral failure at my church. I had a leadership failure.
Right.
That's a big difference. And so this is fresh with me because of just some churches I've worked with recently, and the result of some horrendous moral failures that pastors have had. So if you're listening right now and you have allowed yourself to go down that slippery slope and you've slid down it, you got to reach out for help, because that's a dead end. Well, Carlos talked about what we've experienced in our ministry, because these guys have been in it as long as I have. Those are, I love that cul-de-sac. That's wonderful. Those are just times where God is refining us. But if you have fallen and gone down this road where you slipped into where you're looking at porn all the time now, or you've got something on the side happening, or you got a secret life, you gotta come clean.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to see you take the church down with you. So I just wanted to clarify that as well, or in the midst of our conversation here.
Absolutely.
The Lord just really brought that up in my spirit there. So now, Austin, you can ask your next question.
No, it's good. It's good. So what do you guys see? This isn't specifically related to your story maybe, but as you are interacting with pastors and leaders, even over the past year, what have you just continued to see as the biggest wins and successes and the biggest challenges?
Well, I think one of the biggest wins is the fact that the church at large is awakening to the realization that small churches are not sick or less than. That's a huge, huge win. It's been almost a decade ago, I think, our son Ben came to us and said, you know what, Mom and Dad, you guys are good small church pastors. I think you should do a conference for small church pastors.
Wow.
And I think that was honestly a pretty brand new idea at that point. And we thought that was a great idea too, and we began to do some brainstorming and even came up with a name for the conference, which is not the name it has now, actually, but it didn't really get a lot of traction right then in our ministry. We had a number of irons in the fire and whatnot. As we've probably all come to realize that those kinds of things take some time to germinate anyway. And so a few years went by and I began to feel compelled about that. Lord kind of brought me back to that, and I began to feel compelled about it. So I thought, well, surely by now, I'm going to do a search on the internet, and surely by now there are some conferences and some things, some more resources for church pastors. And, to my surprise, there was just so little. I had a really hard time finding anything at that time. And the one thing I did run onto was Carl Vader's webpage, and it was so well put together.
And the grasshopper myth.
The grasshopper myth, but it was so well put together that that's confidence building when you see something that's actually done well. But what grabbed me was what he wrote about being a pastor of a small church. And so, from there, he really began to become a voice for this small church. And so there's this awakening going on. And I think that is a tremendous success.
Yeah.
But because literally for years, we labored under this,
if your church isn't growing, there's something wrong with it.
Yes.
There's a sickness there that you've got to diagnose, and you've got to prescribe and treat. And
and every book and every conference we went to was almost solely geared toward numerical church growth.
Yeah.
And we didn't know any different. And so we would take this thing and that thing and the other thing and try to implement it in our churches. And, none of it really ever produced much at all. And so fast forward to, we had, I don't want to make this too long, but we had done a very large music festival and an all ages music venue on our campus for about 5 years. It was very, very successful. And it was a lot of fun, and it was, oh my gosh, so much work. Our son Ben actually headed that up with a friend and the founder of the music festival that we held at our campus, and it was fantastic, and it was really in line with what we felt like God had called us and given us a vision for. As far as the use of our campus was concerned. But that ran its course and came to its end, as all good things do. Mm-hmm. And I really went through an identity crisis. I'm like, who are we now? We're just this little church and we're not doing anything. And, it just felt so, I was grieving the loss of that. And I remember laying in our bed one night, and we were both kind of staring at the ceiling, and tears were running into my ears. And I was like, Carl, what are we? Who are we? And he says, Kalani, he says, I love our church. Mm. Our church is a place where people get second chances. And honest to goodness, that was, if you want to talk about a paradigm shift, in that moment, God set me free from that need to somehow prove or, be bigger in some way. And I began to relax into that calling, and that I think that really set us up for, this conference coming about.
We'd established ourselves as a small church that took on very big things. I mean, that music festival was a 5-day festival that had 3-day festival that had 200 bands and thousands of people that came to it.
What was it called?
It was called Tom Fest.
Tom Fest, yeah. So we
had
everywhere.
And so
we had Sun Fest at Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. But your question was what's exciting and what's not. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will tell you, and this is kind of at the risk of offending some.
That's all right.
We never do that.
Yeah.
I think the thing that is most troubling to me that I see going on in the church right now is that there is such a spirit of fear that is being pushed and motivated in the world today. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. And I see the church responding to that in ways that is really, like, at least in our area, it's very polarizing. We've got churches that are full speed ahead. We are the body of Christ. We are endeavoring to do everything that God has called us to do. And then we've got churches that are really holding back and very much going, well, we'll see what we can do when things get safe again. And there's a lot of resentment growing between those two camps, I guess. And you don't love, and you're not being careful, and how dare you be so irresponsible to, you have no faith, and I don't think either are true. I think it's easy to allow the enemy to polarize, and we're going through some things right now that are very, very concerning to me, and I certainly have no solution to offer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you do, because we're going to do a conference together really soon. So kind of give us some details about the conference, what it's called, how to find out about it, the timing and cost and all that stuff.
Okay.
As we kind of move toward the end of the podcast, I want to give the details of the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. So Big Little Church Conference. And that's the name of the website, www.biglittlechurchconference.com. And so you find all the details there. Our featured guest will again be Carl Baders. He's become our good friend. And I know that I'm sure that he is going to have a lot to say about leading through crisis. And we have never put
Who's that Dale guy that's going
I'm getting to that.
Probably some weirdo. That's right. That's all.
I can assure you he is.
We have never had a theme for our conference before. It's just always been Big Little Church Conference, and that was enough. But we really felt impressed. In fact, our oldest son, Stephen, brought this forward, and we felt impressed to theme our conference this year, The Way Forward. And so I think that that's going to flavor what we do. I find it a little bit funny. I just saw a book, and I've seen a few things like this coming out about this pandemic and what we've learned. And I think, oh my, we're not even through it yet. So how, I guess we can say what we've learned so far, but anyway, I'm sure that will flavor what we're doing. The conference is only $99. And we try to keep it just absolutely as reasonable as possible, because we know that small churches have small budgets. And if you're within reach of my voice, we do not want finances to prevent you from attending. So if you have a need in that area, please get in touch with me. And we would love to serve you.
What does that $99 include?
$99 includes all the conference and your lodging for free. Now,
lodging for free.
Now we have
and luxury first class camp cabin lodging.
Now listen, we have cabin style lodging on our campus. And our shower facilities are separate from those. There are no restrooms within the walls of those little cabins, but they are brand spanking new, have been remodeled, and they actually have lovely mattresses in them that will fit a life-size human. And
life-size human.
And they have heat, and they have air conditioning, and they have lights, and it really is pretty darn good. And so you get your lodging for free. And then we have meal plans as well, or a meal plan, I should say. And for $33 a person, you can feed yourself for the entire conference. And let me tell you something, we have some really good cooks.
So
that work on that food.
The long and the short of it is, we absolutely remember being a small church pastor.
Yes.
We absolutely remember the ache of knowing you needed to go be a place and hear things and mix with people who were doing the things that you were doing, but straight up could not afford it. So we're trying to do everything that we can do to make this something that just about anybody could go to.
Yeah. So Carl Vaders, Dale Sellers, who we're very excited about. Excited about.
Okay.
Now stop it. I am.
She's
a little nervous, rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Are y'all going to have an interpreter for him since he's from South Carolina?
We have Chris Vitarelli, who I'm also very excited about, from Michigan, and he started the Small Church Big Deal Conference about a year before we started our conference. And he's written a book by the same title, and I'm just thrilled. I think it's a very strong lineup this year of people who are going to be sharing specifically toward the small church pastor and leader. What else can we tell you about? The campus is beautiful. It's a trend. The dates. April 26th through 28th.
So it's coming right up.
April 26th through 28th. But you know what? Here's the beauty of being a small church pastor. You can hear something like this, and you can just about turn on a dime. You can make your plans in pretty short order and get yourself out here.
Yeah.
And airfare is pretty cheap right now. And if you are coming from somewhere else in the country and you are flying in, you need to fly into Portland International Airport. Mm-hmm. Plan your travel through that. We will pick you up from the airport and we will get you back there when it's time to go.
Wow. That's sweet. This is awesome. We're going to put a link to the conference as well in the show notes for this episode. So if you guys look at that, you can find the link for that and get signed up. I know Dale's very excited to be part of it this year. And we're just really excited to see what happens with it this year. So Carl and Kalani, we love to close out all of our podcasts with one last question. And that is just, as you're talking to hundreds of small and mid-sized church leaders today, what is just one last word of encouragement, advice, or support you'd like to leave with them?
Got one?
He's leaning forward for this one. You guys better be ready.
Yeah.
Jesus is coming very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And he's bringing with him his reward. And now is not the time to bury the talent. Now is not the time to falter or waver. Just make strong your legs and your feeble arms, and by all means draw encouragement and strength from those that God can bless you with. Yeah. And he'll be here soon. He'll be here soon.
Thanks for listening to the 95 Podcast. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. In the meantime, visit our website at 95network.org. The website is loaded with great resources created for small and mid-sized church leaders. Until next time, have a great week.